Hello, how's everyone doing today? Hopefully you had a great weekend or a great day, depending on when you're watching this. If you're watching the live event or if you're watching this on YouTube afterwards. Today we're going to cover securing our blob storage. If you were on the stream or watched the previous video where we added the blob containers to our contacts application, notice we got it working, and then we tried to start with the security and realized that there were a bunch of changes. Not a bunch, but we basically had to change the library we're using because they're using new identity management for it, and we don't really want our blobs open to public where people can just download stuff and upload stuff to them. So we're going to secure them a little bit more than what we currently had. Did find this article written on how to authorize our blobs and QData, essentially anything in storage, want to use the Azure.Identity library, which we've already started to use as part of our authentication for the API. So the integration should be relatively easy. And I say should be because you never know. So we're going to play around with it. If you've been with us before, you know that, or at least with last week, I went and used a library that I put together called Azure Storage Helpers, or because JoeG.Guadagno.AzureHelpers.Storage, where it has a lot of quick, easy routines for getting access to the blob. So we are going to modify that to allow for the new security. So let's go and take a look at that. Now, evidently, I don't have the code on my new laptop, so we're going to go and get the latest version of it and put it on my machine. So let's go to, come on, code cd/projects, then git clone, paste in the URL. A couple of seconds and it's done. Now let's go and open up that project. So file, open. Actually could have did right from version control here. I just like to create the file so I don't have to do a whole bunch of settings with it. Where are you? Azure Storage Helpers. And open up the solution. Open up in this window. And then we should be good. This project, if you haven't seen it before, I don't think I've actually streamed with it, has two projects with it. JosephGuadagno.AzureHelpers.Storage and the associated test case. These test cases are actual, that's what I'm looking for, integration tests, because they actually go and read and write to blob storage and queues, only because I wanted to make sure that they work and not just mock it out. Oh no, the solution was loaded with 2 errors. What could those 2 errors be? Let's go take a look. Oh, crud. I don't have the latest. I don't have all the versions of Visual Studio on here. Or not Visual Studio, .NET Framework. I only downloaded a minimum set, the ones I thought I would use, but I built this package, which I think I can still work at it. I just won't be able to run all the unit tests. But let's see. I think it's already failing. Probably needs to just restore the library, so let me do that. And I probably should have restored all those ahead of time, but I decided not to. My stream is experiencing issues. Probably because I opened up 6 things at once and was taxing the CPU. Let me just right click and, oh, where is it? should do a Control-Shift build. That will cause us getting the things. You'll also notice I added tooltips at the bottom. Looks like I have to download the latest version of these products. So bear with me while I go and do that. I am going to, I think there's actually an easier way to do it from within Rider, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. And let's put you in performance mode so we stop skipping frames. And I think I can close you out because I don't need you right now. Microsoft .NET framework. I'm gonna minimize this a little bit so I can see what versions I need. 4.6, 4.8, and 4.7.1. Oh, 4.8 wasn't found. Surprise. Hopefully everything else runs with this. Save you. And then I needed 4.7.1. I essentially, when I built this pack, set it so that it would work with all different versions of .NET. And as a result, I need to have all those versions on my machine. And last is 4.6.2. Why do you need 4.7.0? 4.7.1, 4.7.0, and 4.6.2. And let's go with 4.6.2. I think that's it. Download. I'm going to close Rider in the meantime because we're going to probably need to restart it anyway as a result. Hopefully we don't have to restart the computer. If we do, that's going to make for a terrible experience. So let's open this up. And let's start with 4.6.2. I speed read that entire thing. Up the next one. Don't click install until that one's done. Good thing is, I don't think any of these require a reboot. Betcha for those that chimed in, it's like, oh look, I taking time out of my day to watch a stream just for a person to click next and install 5 different things. What a good use of time. Hopefully it'll be worth it in a minute once I get all these updates done. One of the challenges with starting up a new PC, miss things every once in a while. And I haven't done anything with this project in like 3 weeks. Which is why I have to update all these. Lovely day in Phoenix here. I think we broke another record temperature. It's above 110 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like 43 or 44 Celsius, maybe 46. It's hot. But I haven't gone outside. I go outside to bring out the garbage and take in the garbage cans. That's about it. Or trash or refuse, depending where you're from. I guess I could have ran them all simultaneously. Technically, they all go in separate folders, so it should run pretty easy. Let's wait for that to finish, and then I will update, open up Writer. Successful. Let's try this out. Hopefully I don't need any more. I think I got them all. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Okay, started. I probably fell behind this window with the open dialog. By that, or it's rebuilding all its caches now because I updated 4 different versions of .NET Framework. While that's happening, let's go and take a look at what we need to do. So if we're watching this, it looked at this authorize and this is existing blog post, which I'll put, or existing docs, which I'll put in the guidance or in the GitHub repo once we're done. Essentially, it wants us to either create a user, and here's some examples to create it, which we're not going to do. You can then set some environment variables. This is if for local development. You can also set these as keys if you're in the Azure app service to use, and then add in the blob storage package and the identity package. So we're going to go and add the identity package to ours, which already uses the storage blobs. And then we need to change our credentials or login to this to validate it works. So let's see if Writer is ready yet. Yes, it is. Let's go and open you up. Ooh, it's detecting the Git executable. Normally when I get my stream ready, I make sure everything's closed, all the background apps, but my son moved back home from college and it's his birthday today too, and he wanted to play some Xbox after I was done with work and before here, so I was playing right up until I needed to start the stream, so I didn't get everything ready. And I was doing some work on this computer yesterday, so it had a bunch of things running in the background, like you can see Docker's running and Microsoft Edge and JetBrains Toolbox, a lot of things I don't need regularly. I normally shut all them down just before the start, so it runs a lot faster. Okay, it's processing assemblies. I'll build it in a second once it's done, and that should download all the NuGet packages and everything that we need. And then we can look at it. In the meantime, let's open up the container where we do most of the work from. The container wants a storage connection string. As if you go to that full URL that we did last week, which is the storage account.windows.storage.azure.net / whatever account container it is, with any access tokens and keys, which we don't want to do. We want to pass in the container part, or the token part, which is right here. So we're going to implement this part within here. So, are you up yet? Yep, it's up. Let's do Control-Shift-B. Build those all. It's funny, it says Control-9. That's the default shortcut, but I use the old Windows Visual Studio shortcuts, just Control-Shift-B. But presentation mode just has the hard code. Look at that, we got 3,000 errors, which you can't see because it's blocking by my face, but there's 3,000 errors in this project. Mostly because everything is unknown because we don't have all the packages. So after building, a lot of that stuff should disappear. Right now we're doing some solution analysis to make sure everything is good. And I'll minimize this so you can actually see it and take it outside of my face. So right here, stop it. Have me in full screen. I'm trying to pull it out of full screen without getting, as soon as you get close to the top, Windows wants to drop it. Let's do this and shrink it so you can see what's happening. So right here, it's running through any of the errors and they're all done. That's another error I got all together. So let's bring you back up. Everything should be good. You need to start Azure right. I think the test automatically does that. This forces a start, but I don't need to do that anymore because I have Azure.Identity running in the background in a Docker container. But let me just double check and run the blob test. Make sure everything is running. All these tests passed, and we should be good to start editing. Now you're probably wondering, why are there 8 copies of the test running? That's because we're running tests for each of the different frameworks because I have all target frameworks set right here. So it's going to build it in .NET 4.7.1, randomly pick that one first, 4.7, 4.6.2, 4.8, one in .NET Standard and one in .NET Core. Normally when I'm doing testing, I just change this target framework here to only pick one of them, and I usually pick Core because that's the fastest. And then just before I'm ready to commit the changes, I'll run through all of them. Especially because with this particular package, it doesn't have the unit test running on build because it needs Azure.Identity, and I didn't play around to figure out how to get that Docker container working and running a unit test against that. Might be a day for another stream. So that's successful. So at least we know our tests work and it's connecting to our storage containers. So now let's check out the code we need to change. Let's start with the container first. So for the containers, for the most part, if you have a storage connection string, we'll take that. The other thing, actually, that's the only option. So we're going to want to add another constructor to allow for that change. So if we look, I think it's this one. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I have the other page open. I have to keep going back and forth. Loading this one. We want to be able to send in, oh, not that one either. I opened up a bunch of web pages ahead of time to save us some time. Now that shows us how we get token. There it is. We want to pass in the access token. with it. And that doesn't really work because the connection string requires is a string. So how should I do that? I can't do it here. And I can't just create another option with it, or another parameter with it. The other thing we could do is pass in the Azure credentials, not the token, which is yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Excuse me. Huh. Which one do I want to do? Could pass in the storage credentials. I can do blob container client, which would be my container, and then take in a Azure credentials, which I believe is, so let's try that. I want to add Azure.Identity to this process. All the unit tests pass except for this one, and that's fine because there's one I have disabled on the Macs. Where are we? Number 7. Let's close you so we have more room. And my machine is taking its sweet old time. Bunch of updates too. We want to do Azure.Identity version 1.1.1. Nice. Add that to there. Not going to add it to there because it's implicitly added because that one because we required in here. Let's see, what other packages need to be updated? Might be time since we're making changes to update 4. Might as well update that, and we'll update the queues. Not going to bother with updating the unit tests right now. We're updating the versions. Okay, so while that's updating, we are going to want to do a public containers, and then this should be Azure token credential, call it token credential. And do if string dot is null or empty. Actually, it's not string. This is Joseph null. If token credential equals null, throw new argument null exception. And then we want the parameter, which is name of token credential. Then the message is the Actually, we can actually set this to null. There is a default one. Let's do that. There is a default one that we can do, which pulls in the credentials from the configuration file. So let's do that. If token credential equals null, token credential equals new default Azure credentials. And then we need to create a new blob client, which is here. I saw the code. Oh, I need the endpoint. So I have to make up the endpoint for it. Or do I? No, I don't want blob container client. I just want the container. So let's do blob service client equals new blob service client, and let's see what my options are. Service URI connection, need the service UI and the credentials. So let's see, how do I want to do that? Let's do token credential for now. And I'm just going to do blob client options because it's there. So let's allow the user to specify it. And then I'm going to need a URI here. So let's come up here and do, I can do URI. I can do string account name. And then token credentials. And then blob storage. Or blob client options. Blob client options, and this could equal null. That was the default, right? Yeah, default was null. And then this is going to be, this needs to be URI, so let's go and convert that. So we want this part of the string. We don't want the container part because we're doing the creation, the connection. String container endpoint, or let's do account endpoint because that's what it really is in this case. Count endpoint string format. Some old documentation. I'm gonna have to go and submit a PR to fix that. Should really be this and count name. And close you out. And then this should be new URI. Count endpoint. And then I forgot the token credential. There we go. That should commit it. And that would allow us to create one with credentials. So I figured out another way to pass this in. Okay, let's do the blob one next. Nothing else should have to change because everything else just uses the blob client or blob service client. We'll probably have to put a couple of unit tests around this, but I'll just add a to-do so I don't forget. And let's add in one more test. If account name equals null, throw new argument null exception, name of account name, then the Azure or Azure storage account name is or cannot be null or empty, and not be null or empty. And let's actually do that test. String dot is null or empty, account name. So we're going to have to create at least 3 tests. One to make sure this is nullable or not nullable. One to make sure that this is nullable, we get the credentials from it, and one for not. It's going to want var, which is understandable. It's the rest of the syntax. Now we're good. Let's take a look at the blobs, and we're going to do something very similar. So I am going to put this on the window to the right, split and move right. And let's close U so we have more screen real estate. And let's, in this window, open up blobs, which we did. Here we want the storage connection string, which is fine the way it is. Container client, or we add in to do add test around this, to do update code documentation. Okay, so public blobs blob. What do we want? Account name. We technically don't even need to do this for this. This is just a shortcut. We can technically create the container client with this particular class, but I tried to make it easier so you can do a one-stop shop for all. So let's just copy out the rest of this. And I think that should be good. Public blobs, yes, import types. Complaining because I pasted it and one of the pieces of code doesn't have it. Equals null. Why are you complaining? Public blobs, which is right. Oh, I got 2 of those, that's why. String account name, string blah, blah, blah. And we need to know the, we want to know the container name. We have all the connection info, account name, token, and let's do string container name. And let's make sure that it's not null. If string is null or empty, container name, row, new, and I don't feel like typing, so let's copy right here so the message is the same. I just copied that before. And this should be container endpoint. And then we want the container name here. And then this is container. And this should just be blob client at this point, I believe, right? That's where we're using blob Oh yeah, we want new blob container client. That's right. New blob container client. Why are you complaining? Oh, this should be blob. Container client, not service client. So I think that's everything. Let me add in the to-dos. Oh yeah, I made it on chat. I got 2 people that are asking me to follow. So hold on a second, let me get rid of those things. I want to know if I want to be famous and buy some followers. We'll ban those guys in a second. Oh. Where is it? Oh, right. I can't block them right now because I didn't have the chat open ahead of time. My bad. Oh well. I'll sit there. Sorry for that. So where were we? Here. To do add unit test around this. To do update code documentation. So now we should be able to pass in the token credentials, which I believe is what this did. So we get the token credentials. Then at that point, we can just pull it directly to upload. So that should not change anything. Let's just make sure the managed identity one works. Let's scroll all the way back up to the top. Register app, we don't need to do that. We already have that. Already have that. It should be good. This gets us the token. We could technically pull the token and pass that in as an option also. But we need to know that needs to be a string for it. So we'll have to come back and think about a way to do that. The other thing is for us to magically or call behind the scenes, but that ties us too much into it. I'd rather the calling application give us the credentials that it wants to use for it. So let's go back to our test. I think we are good to go here. Just double check everything. Yep. The only way to really test this locally is to connect to an Azure endpoint with it, which We have the client app and everything else, but I don't want to tie that into this project. So we'll probably have to create a separate client app and a separate storage app to do that validation. Let's see, with my blob test, blob container test. Now I'll have to add in the constructor test here to make sure that all that works. I think that's about all we can get. I don't want to spend too much time because then we're going to run out of time and get halfway through this. It looks like we're going to have to kind of continue where we left off on Tuesday. I think what I'll do is I'll create the client apps and everything else behind the scenes for our testing to make sure that this works out for our library. That being said, I think that would be it for here, or at least for today. Hope you got something out of it outside of how to follow up. You can see some of the thought patterns going behind how we build out NuGet packages and libraries to go with it. I'm going to start working on the test cases. I'll probably do that tonight or tomorrow. I'll update the test cases so we don't have to do that on the stream, since it's pretty much copy and paste for that matter. Run through the test cases and then we'll incorporate that into our contacts app later on. So I hope you have a great day, evening, night, morning, wherever you are, or whenever you watch this. Please follow along at any of the social media parts that are listed on here. Follow me at JosephGuadagno or JoeG Net FB for Facebook, or JosephGuadagno or JJG.me/YouTube for video. If you like anything you see, subscribe. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any comments or questions. Thanks again. Have a great day.